Welcome back to Questions of Life. This is the next video in our series of discussions on social media. Okay, so let's pick up on that, Sam. I've got a question for you. I struggle with this, and so I do nothing. Is it okay for a Christian to like or to write something that has a swear word, or to like a meme or a joke or a picture that's crude, rude or inappropriate? Because sometimes they're wrong, but they're funny. And I don't like them because I think, what will people think of me? Even if there's a swear word in there. What do you think?
I think, well, I'd be lying to you if I said to you that over the dinner table that I wouldn't have shared a joke like that or a meme like that with my family, or you know what I mean? And I think there is things that I would say around the dinner table that I know that those people would take it the way that it would be taken, and would know, they know me, they know what I'm like and what I'm about. I think there's a deeper element to this question in terms of swear words and what we all think is appropriate. You know, the Bible talks about things being lawful, but not everything's necessarily helpful. And I definitely go back to, like, you know, we have a choice to behave however we like, but not everything is helpful for us, and not everything is helpful for everybody else. And we all have our own struggles. We all have our own things that we struggle with. But I think the more and more I've sort of been a Christian, I think language and the way that we speak is really important. And I think the things that we say and the way that we talk is really, really important. And again, there's a separate conversation probably to be had about swear words and what words are appropriate and what words aren't. But I think it goes back again to talking about what we were talking about right at the beginning. What would Jesus do if we're to be an ambassador, you know, of Jesus? I was kind of thinking about what's it like to be an ambassador of a company. I was thinking, you know, that I watch a lot of golf, and there's a chap just at the moment who has been heard on camera using a homophobic slur. He was picked up using language, what they considered to be not great language. And he's been dropped by two of his the companies that sponsor him. He was ambassadors for those companies, and he behaved in a way which wasn't good, which was hurtful to a huge amount of people live on television, and they dropped him for that because they felt like he wasn't an ambassador for the company anymore. So the question that I would say is, what to you, and what does the Bible say? Does it mean to be an ambassador for Jesus? And is condoning foul language and bad jokes, tasteless jokes, something which helps other people grow and glorify God in their own lives? I think you have to check it and ask yourself that question before you post stuff. Yeah, there's obviously, like, lots of people have all sorts of different amounts of followers, but just the idea that would you share something that you would share with 3 or 4 people that know you very well with something that 600 people could see and all take all sorts of different ways.
I always think, would I say it in church? Would I show it in church in front of all those people? Would I want them to know that I find that funny? And I just think that's just not helpful.
I think one of the things that's funny for me is that, so I write quite a bit of stuff that goes on our YouTube channel, descriptions of videos and whatever. And you two are also the administrators of the YouTube channel. So nothing I can post, you couldn't change or say that, you don't say that. And I actually think that's a really helpful thing for me. But the thing that's funny about it is that if I watch another YouTube video, if I haven't changed it to Donald, it looks like Sutton Coldfield Baptist Church is watching that video.
Yes.
So then Sutton Coldfield Baptist Church gets recommended with loads of videos about Cambridge United.
Don't worry, I don't watch them.
But that is also a really helpful thing, because I have to think, hang on, if I am watching this, and if I haven't changed it to Donald, and to be honest, 90% of the time I forget. So 90%, everybody else can say, one of the administrators of Sutton Baptist is watching Cambridge United. But it's actually quite a helpful thing that stops me watching rubbish.
Sam said, we were talking about something this week, and Sam said something that I think I would have found helpful had I been told, I don't know, 15 years ago, which was, is everything I'm posting now, would I be happy that being there in 10 years' time? Will I have wanted to have said that? Which is why I check myself before I say it. I do think there's a flip side, that is, if you overthink everything, you end up posting nothing at all.
Absolutely.
Not that there's a huge problem that some people don't post anything at all, but I find it helpful to post something. So if I thought about everyone and all of their weaknesses and their struggles and their issues and whatever, I wouldn't post anything. Nothing with my kids, nothing with me doing silly things, none of my deeper stuff. I wouldn't post any of that. And so there does have to be a balance, I think. If you're going to interact on social media, you have to come to a point where you're happy to... I mean, like Donald says, it opens you up for accusation, but can you deal with that or not? And if you can't, then it's better to stay off because there's always some people who are unhappy with...
Yeah, and I think on that, with the looking back in 10 years, if it's because your opinion on something has changed or new information has come to light or something and you feel differently about that topic or that issue or that thing, that's fine. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think, our feelings change towards things, we learn new things, our lives change. But if you look back on it and it's because I really wish I hadn't said that to that person, or I really wish I hadn't used that word, or I really wish I hadn't posted that picture or that joke, that's more kind of what it's like. And I always remember a fellow youth worker friend of mine, he was speaking at a youth weekend away with 100 or so of his young people. And the first thing he did was he got up on stage. They were talking about social media and different things that weekend and just our identity and who we are. And he stood up there and he said, oh, by the way, we've all, some of the leaders here have gone through all of your social media accounts and we've pulled up posts from the last sort of 3 or 4 years ago and different things, and we're just going to put a slideshow on now. Obviously, he wasn't telling the truth, and he wasn't. And basically let it settle for a bit. And then he said, we're joking, but how do you feel? How do you feel about the fact that I've said that? And they all admitted afterwards to saying, I felt really worried. And I think if we ask ourselves that question, if somebody would go back through our news feed and look at all of our past stuff, how would we feel? Would we feel really worried about the prospect? And for me, to be honest, my Facebook, I know that if I went back to when I was a teenager, there would be some things on there that I would not, I'm happy to admit this, would not be proud of. So now I really do think hard before I post something. I really think, is this going to be helpful? And just touching on something that Deb said about discussing things, I would go a step further than that. I wouldn't discuss anything with somebody on Facebook or social media that is an emotional, heated topic. And that's personally for me, from what I can handle and what I can deal with. I would say the main worry for that, for me, is that I say something that I don't mean it to come out that way, or I type something and I don't mean it. And I know that I do that in conversations. I say things to people that I don't mean to come out quite that kind of abruptly or whatever. It's a lot easier in a conversation or even over a phone call or a Zoom call. It's a lot easier for me to see that person's probably been taken aback by that and say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it in that way. That's really difficult on social media. And for me personally, who struggles with that type of thing, I make the decision not to engage in any debates because they get too emotional. And I know that I'm going to say something most likely that will upset somebody. And I'd much rather have that kind of back and forth in person, face to face. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about any things that I post. I don't mind having what would be a difficult conversation with somebody, but I just choose not to do it for those reasons on social media. And I see it all the time. And it's one of the things which really gets my goat about social media. I mean, we have had conversations about it in our house, about the different ways that we've responded to things, but I see it all the time. Christians, non-Christians, that just talk in a way on social media to people that they would never talk to them face to face. And there's a safety behind the screen. You see trolls send horrendous things to celebrities, and I'm not likening that to people having arguments on Facebook, but there's a safety there that you're not going to have the backlash from the person instantly. And I think if we're using that safety to say things that we wouldn't say to people's faces, then we have to question that and ask ourselves if that's the right thing to be doing.
Can I lob a hand grenade in?
Yes.
So this thing about not saying something that you would 10 years wouldn't regret, I think that's really, really helpful. But I also think there is nothing I wore or said or looked like or believed in when I was 13 that I would have stood by when I was 23.
Yeah.
And I don't think 13-year-olds are capable of understanding that. So I would say as a parent, if you can delay your kids getting on Facebook for as
Absolutely.
long as possible and protect them, because there is no 13-year-old who will be happy with what they put on when they are 23.
Totally agree.
So we've got to find ways to protect our kids from this. And now I know that sometimes it's the horse is out the stable. So how you help your child, and I just think delay. Just put it off, supervise. Obviously, by the time they get to 18, you can't be doing it. But if you can even stop somebody at 13 not going on till they're 14, or somebody at 14 not being completely unsupervised till they're 15, however hard that battle is, I promise you, when they are 23, 24, 25, they will thank you for it.
Yeah.
I think, I was going to say when I introduced myself and said what I was on, that a really helpful thing, looking back now, I went to boarding school and the computers at school you couldn't get on. Things like MSN Messenger or MySpace or whatever it was at that point. And I actually think that was a really good thing. So I didn't get on to social media until I went to uni. And
look at you at uni.
Facebook started. Yeah, I mean, uni wasn't great. It was a learning ground. But I think I was able to deal with it then.
Yeah,
I agree.
I was able to deal with the backlash and everything, whereas I'm not sure. I think I'd probably have a very different relationship with social media if I'd been on it earlier.
Yeah.
I think what Donald and Deborah said is really, really important. Sorry, just to say one more thing. I think when I was doing my theology degree at Bible College, we did a lot on sort of, because it was youth focused, we did a lot on human development. And particularly girls develop mentally earlier than boys, and boys develop. But it happens in that kind of 12, 13, 14, where they really start trying to figure out who they are, what they believe in, those types of things. So it's a critical age for them to learn and to get good information provided to them. But for the other side of stuff with social media, it's also an age where all sorts of negative feelings and all that sort of stuff can come in, and it's a really, really important, that kind of 12 to 16. And I think most social medias are around 16, where they let people on. And one of the things on the social dilemma, which I will just pick up on, because I do think it's worth mentioning, is in terms of mental health, particularly in teenage girls, from when social media was available on mobile devices, the rates of self-harm, mental illness in young teenagers and suicide rates skyrocketed.
Because they were exposed so much earlier.
Because they were exposed so much younger, so much earlier. And the constant looking at me and knowing what people knowing what I'm doing and feeling like people are judging me, it can't be handled at a young age like that.
And
I think it's really important to know that.
The numbers of operations, plastic surgery happening on teenagers, they have a specific name for it, I can't remember what it is, but it's so that they can look like what they look like with a certain filter on.
With a filter on, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Has skyrocketed because they get more likes when they put that filter on. And the whole likes thing and the mental health relationship with it is very linked. But yeah.
I've got a message in here from a teacher, primary school teacher. Absolutely agree with children not getting involved. It's massive. The majority of my class at 11 are on social media, and trying to have these conversations with them about how they need to know what they're doing or the impact they have. They are too young to understand the dangers until the damage is done.
Yeah.
But someone else has just asked a question. I know we're well over time, but this is really interesting. Just a question about, do you think it's better if parents don't have social media so the child will not have social media?
I don't think it works like that. Is all I'd say. I mean, maybe you might. I think it's the conversations you have is far more important. I don't know.
Yeah, as someone who didn't have social media, I don't think that makes a difference. I think the more helpful thing is be a friend on that site. Don't let your child have a site that you can't see.
Oh, so be able to see what they're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and that's a bit like me with the YouTube channel. You're always seeing what I'm posting. I think as a parent, you have to say, look, if I'm going to buy you this phone because you're paying for it, or I'm going to pay for this amount of what's the word I'm looking for? I'm paying for the
Data.
Data. That's the word I was looking for. This is the condition. I will see everything you post.
That primary school teacher has said it's not about the parents, it's the kids that are desperate to conform.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that I just wanted to touch on again, just from a comment that came in earlier, a question that came in earlier, I think from Kath, talking about coming off it and going back onto it. I made a decision, and I think this is the thing, the kids, like this primary school teacher's talking about, feel the need to conform. I have to be on this. And that was the lie, I think, that was fed to me for a long time. I have to be on this, because it became a point in my life where it was a trade-off with my mental health. Is coming off this going to damage my life more than staying on it and dealing with the mental health issues as a result? I made the decision to come off of it, because I made the decision that the damage would be less in my life if I came off of it. Now, for me personally, and the one thing I will say about the social dilemma as well, we watched the film the other night, the documentary, and after we watched it, I felt quite anxious. And I will just say that as a proviso for anybody that does have anxiety. I think it's really worth watching if you can deal with feeling, perhaps if that type of thing makes you feel anxious. It just drove home to me that it was and has been social media that contributes to my anxiety, because a lot of the stuff that was said on there just made me feel quite... But it was a trade-off for me. Am I going to, accept the fact that I might not see things straight away? As it was, about 6 weeks after coming off, a friend of mine had a baby, and I didn't see it because it was only on Facebook. And I messaged them, and then I said, we were talking, they said they were surprised that I didn't know, basically, because I hadn't been on Facebook. So it's little things like that that I was like, I'm going to miss out on things like that. I'm not going to see stuff. But I do predominantly think that the idea that you have to be on it is a lie. It's not true. You can live your life in a way that still has relationships with people. And we've talked about the pros that we've had all over the last year. We've not been able to see each other socially. But you can live your life not on it if it is contributing to your mental health. And for a lot of people, I know that it does. So for me, I've felt far less anxious. Particularly Facebook was an issue for me, and others aren't. And it's not to say that everything will be the same, but it is a trade-off. And personally for me, I can say that having done it, my life feels in a lot better place now than it was. So it's just that kind of trade-off.
I have no sense I've missed out. I have no sense. I think the feeling of missing out is a real 21st century problem for humanity. That we are bombarded with so many options and so many choices that it becomes overwhelming. And we become paralysed in the headlights that I'm not doing all the great things I could be doing. It's much easier to not know about the rubbish. And, everybody may look at my life and say, well, I wouldn't want to be like him, but that's absolutely fine. But I can tell you, I have never for a moment thought I wish I was on social media. I'm perfectly happy without it.
I think it's a lot harder if you've been on it to then come off
it.
It is
I mean, a bit like drugs, it's a lot harder to come off something. But with the whole children's thing, one thing that was really helpful for me from a very early age, and it is partly because of what my parents are like, but I came home crying from school one day because I said some child had said that I wasn't normal. And my mum and dad just looked at me. They just laughed at me for a start.
Sorry.
And then they said, look at your mum, look at your dad, look at your granddads, look at your grandmothers. Do you expect to be normal? And then they said, and this is a bit that I think is really helpful, they said, why would you want to be normal?
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've never wanted to be normal. And so I think if you can... The parents can be really helpful. The conversations you have
Absolutely.
and what you portray and what your aim is and what you want to be can be really helpful from a very early age. I think I was about 5 when that happened.
You're still not normal. Just to say, we are going to finish now, and I'm going to give you each an opportunity. If there's one short thing you want to say as we close that we've not covered yet, do say it. But Sam, you've done some devotionals on this whole thing of finding peace, and one of them you've talked about coming off Facebook. And you can find those on our YouTube channel. You've done 3 so far. Is there another one on the way?
There's another one. Yeah, there's another. I think there's another 3. It's just like little things basically which help us experience the peace of God.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that I've noticed through doing them is there are things that get in the way, which mean that God's peace struggles to fit in. And I think we were talking a little bit before this. I think just about the amount that I let things speak into my life over God and other things, and just making that conscious effort to really make sure that God and Scripture and just spending time with Him is what's speaking into my life. So they're just, some of them are slightly longer than others. The last one that I did this Monday was slightly shorter. So Yeah.
They're great. I'd recommend them. I've seen them all. Just really, really helpful. If you go to our YouTube channel, and they're out every Monday as well. Monday is your devotional slot at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, Donald, anything you want to say that you've not yet said?
I think these guys have spoken brilliantly.
Yes.
I wouldn't feel I need to add. I think you've got to work out your own, what's right for you, and these
Yep.
guys have done it brilliantly.
You have done brilliantly. Anything you want to finally say?
I'd say it brings me a lot of joy,
Yeah.
but real life brings me even more joy, as in life off the screen, and real life feeds into what I post on the screen. So real life is so important, and because of that, the boundaries, setting limits on your phone on the amount of time you spend on social media, having set times where you don't go on it and other people know that you don't go on it, all of that make it all the more a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just say, from personal experience, and again, like the guys have said, it's personal experience. Everybody's experience is different with these things. But I think for me, what really helped me is having a really long, hard think. Is this helping me?
Yeah.
Is this something which is making me, for me as a Christian, grow closer to God, be a better person, love people better? Is this really doing this for me? And on the mental health side of things, which I've struggled with, for most of my life, is this contributing to my mental health? And if it is, do I really need it in my life? Can I get rid of it completely? Can I take a little bit of time to just have a break? Can I get accountability, which is another thing that we've talked about, where people speak into my life and give me helpful advice? But just sitting down and really thinking, and that self-awareness of being aware of what leads us down different paths and what makes us feel different ways and what contributes to certain things and doesn't, has just really, really helped me over the last few years. And you don't believe the lie that you need all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
you don't.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Can we say a huge thank you to Sam and Deb? You've been absolutely amazing. It's been wonderful to have you with us. See you later. Goodbye and thank you.
Cheerio.